Hello, everyone. It is Thursday, February 20th, 2025, and today we're exploring three key trends shaping Columbus, Ohio housing supply this year. So, three main things to focus on this year. And those are going to be increasing home inventory levels, so more real estate supply, some interesting changes in homeownership demographics, and also some recent developments in local housing development policies. Understanding these three factors will help us see not just the challenges, but also the potential opportunities emerging in the local housing market here in Columbus. So, with that said, we are referencing three main articles that came out recently. This first one the title is More Listings Add Much Needed Housing Inventory, but Homes Are Sitting on the Market Longer, which is interesting. So, there's more housing inventory coming on, but homes are sitting on the market longer. But to me, Mark, more housing inventory sounds good. So, like, why are these homes still sitting on the market? Like, what's the issue here?
Well, Devin, more housing inventory is definitely good, but we really need to differentiate, the national, what's going on nationally, and then what's going on in Columbus. So if you look at what's going on nationally, it was the slowest year. 2024 was the slowest year in 5 years for housing, and that's the number of sales in total. In Columbus, we were up a little bit from last year, but last year was down significantly from 2020. So sales are starting to creep upward, but also with sales, the amount of inventory is creeping up. Inventory was up about 6% from 2024, 2024 from 2023. So things are going in the right direction in terms of inventory. I think we're getting back to more what I would consider a normal market, kind of where we were at in 2018, 2019, but we're not quite there yet. Inventory is still really at historically low levels, but again, we're going in the right direction.
Okay, so if things are looking like they're trending towards a more positive, maybe better direction, what does this increase in inventory mean for buyers? Are we looking at maybe more opportunities or
Well, there are definitely going to be more opportunities. More inventory means more opportunity, but the big the big difference is the pricing. The pricing is still continuing to creep up, keeping things really unaffordable, especially for the first time home buyers. So if you look at the where we're at in terms of median sales price and average sale price, we're up about $100,000 from 2020. $100,000 in basically 4 years is something that I have never seen in Central Ohio, and that's really keeping Generation Z and the millennials. They're really having a hard time buying homes right now, just because of the affordability factor.
I see. So on that factor, so the home prices might be too high, and that also relates to what the sellers are doing. So how do you see these trends potentially affecting sellers? Maybe how quickly they'll sell, or at what prices they are going to be willing to sell?
Well, 2025 is going to be a very interesting year because as the market has continued to creep up, sellers are asking more and more and more for their properties. And at some point, something's got to give. And I think we're starting to see that more at the top of the market. When I say the top of the market in Columbus, Ohio, I'm talking about things that are the seven-figure range, the $900,000 range. Buyers are just getting a little bit more picky. Where 18 months ago, 24 months ago, you put something on the market, and no matter what it looked like, you'd have a bidding war. Well, today it's not necessarily that way. My higher end listings are, buyers are being much more choosy on what they buy. But on the flip side of that, if something is priced correctly and in good condition and in a good area, you're still probably going to see multiple offers on it. I know the inventory is still, again, it's still at a historical low. So there are clearly more buyers in the market now than there are homes for them to buy.
Yeah, it seems to me like a one of the problems for people to solve, so to speak, is making sure if they're listing their home, for example, that they're being reasonable and maybe realistic about what they can get from their home, and also what people are willing to pay for their home. So, how can sellers do that? How can they get, maybe a more realistic and reasonable uh, list price for their homes to make sure they actually get, an offer and sell their home?
And that's where a realtor or your agent comes in to help guide you in terms of pricing. And kind of my go-to saying when I talk to a seller is that a home's only worth what somebody else is willing to pay for it, or what the open market's willing to pay for it. But my goal as a seller's agent is obviously to get the highest and best price you can for a seller, but you have to be really careful, because if you're pricing yourself outside of the market, the right buyer is not seeing it. Then the house tends to sit on the market, and then you're reducing price and reducing price until it comes into an equilibrium with what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So it really, pricing your home from the get go is so important when you're selling.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, on a related note, this is I'd say somewhat related. I was looking at uh, recent trends in auto sales, and like even like the new 2025 Toyota Camrys are selling them for $50,000. And then just some article came out yesterday about how they're like, oh, we've got to correct prices. So it seems like this goes along with macroeconomic trends, with national economic trends, where maybe the people selling goods and services, in this case goods, maybe they have to get better aligned with what people are able and willing to pay.
And a car is a good analogy, because the cost of like trucks and just cars in general has absolutely gone through the roof. Obviously, inflation played into that. COVID played into that a little bit. But when I'm seeing trucks that are selling for six figures, I'm what is going on?
Yeah.
These trucks that were selling for $40,000 several years ago are now $90,000, $100,000. Who's buying these automobiles? And to a certain degree, that's happening in the real estate industry, where if you look at pricing, or where we were in 2019, homes are up 40% since then. And again, at some point, something's got to give. And I think the big question on everybody's mind is, when's that going to happen, and what is that going to be? And I just don't have an answer, and a lot of other people don't have the answer either. We thought that interest rates rising would help with affordability, and in Central Ohio, that's not happening now. Across the nation, we've seen some other metro areas that are starting to decline. Cities in Texas, California, the Southwest, and southern states, the markets that really jumped up in pricing very, very quickly are now falling very, very quickly. And that's usually what happens in real estate. Columbus is really a stable market. We don't have the huge ups, the huge downs that some of these other cities have. But what we tend to do is follow trends. So some of these other trends, let's say like in Austin, where pricing is down, from my understanding, about 10%. It'll be interesting to see how that will affect Columbus, if that's going to affect Columbus. And that's really a big if.
Yeah, I see. So it'll be important to watch out for trends. And then this is another interesting trend. This next article, it's titled "The Baby Boomer Effect is Hitting the Housing Market Hard." So that's pretty interesting. So what is this baby boomer effect in the housing market?
That's really having a big effect on our market. And my parents are a perfect example. So the baby boomer generation right now is between 60 and 80. And again, that's my parents' generation. And so what has happened, if you think about it, the people who are in their 60s and 80s, when they were purchasing their homes, let's say 15, 20, 30 years ago, think about how more affordable housing was back then, where interest rates were, or where they've been since they purchased to where we're at now. So if I'm my parents' age and I bought my house 30 years ago, I bought it at a much more competitive price. Maybe interest rates were similar, but through that course, interest rates dropped down to 2 or 3%. I refinanced that, and there's a good chance at this point I own my house outright. So according to this article, 45% of baby boomers don't have any intention of ever moving, which is significant, because right now baby boomers make up for about a third of the generation that owns homes in the United States, about I think 37%. So think about that. Half of the 37% of the inventory, you have no intention to move. And I totally understand it. Again, getting my parents' point of view, my parents have been in their house for a long time. And, they have a home that is way, way too big for them. But for them to downsize into something that might be, a sixth, a seventh, an eighth the size of the house that they're currently in, they're basically exchanging dollars. They could sell their house and basically take that money and buy something that's brand new, or buy something at today's market value, and really they're exchanging dollars. And for them, it just doesn't make any sense. Why should I move out of a house that I'm totally comfortable in, I'm very happy in, I've been in for years, it's paid off, and move to something that is maybe brand new, or brand new area, or brand new home, and that's a fifth or sixth or seventh of the size. Again, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's exactly what so many of my clients, as well as my parents, are going through right now. And again, that's where I think a lot of that 45% are coming from. Like, why should I move? I'm very happy where I'm at.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then also, so if baby boomers are between 60 and 80, let's say they're right in between. Let's say someone is 70 years old, for example. A lot of people are living to 80, 90 years old now. So a lot of these homes might not go anywhere for 5, 10, 15, or 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. So if the older generation, that 70 to 80 range, where normally you would see people like downsize or move into a ranch, if they're not moving ever, or not moving until they've got to go into some sort of senior assisted living, it could be another decade really before they sell their homes. I mean, I'm going into listing presentations of people who are in their 90s living in these 2-story homes. And it just kind of amazes me that rather than downsizing to a transitional home like a ranch, or a home with a first floor master, we're going straight from that family home that they've been in for 30 years right into senior living.
Mm. So if the boomers aren't selling their houses, and as we said, it often makes good sense for them to just keep their home because they might not be able to find what they're looking for on the current market. So what does this mean for current buyers then?
Well, that's tough. I mean, it's really tough for the millennial generation right now. And the millennials right now are that generation between 30 and 45 years old. So they're in their, the 30-year-olds are more in their first-time home buyers. The late 30s, early 40s are in that family mode, that second home. They've started their family. They're looking to maybe potentially move up to something a little bit larger. And that inventory is just not there right now. And the lack of inventory is just causing housing to be very, very expensive.
I see. So on the seller front, is this something that's maybe good for sellers because again, we've got the supply problem, supply and demand.
Absolutely.
People still want homes.
Right. And no, it's great for sellers, but it's great for the sellers that have really taken care of their homes, and kept up with the updates. The other part of this is that today's generation wants something that's what we call turnkey, which has all the bells and the whistles, that looks like new construction. That's how a seller is going to get their highest and best value. Something that a homeowner bought 35 years ago and hasn't done anything to, which again, I go into those homes all the time as well. You're not going to receive top dollar for it, especially today, because again, that millennial generation just does not want to go through the headaches of trying to update something. It looks like a lot of fun on TV, but if you've ever lived through a renovation, trust me, it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think I could speak for the millennial generation because I was born in the mid to late 90s, and let's say a lot of people in my generation, they don't have the same home-related skills that previous generations had. Like my grandpa could do the electrical, the plumbing, basically everything around the house. We spent our time doing different things as children and teenagers, so we probably could develop those skills, but a lot of us have not developed those skills. So if we don't already have some things ready to go in a home, then that home's going to be a lot less attractive to people, I think, around my age, in that late 20s to 30s range.
I would agree with that, definitely.
Okay, so then on this third article, it seems like one of the main issues is supply. So if we can get more homes, that would solve a lot of problems. But this third article is the title is "How Local Government Decisions Are Affecting Central Ohio's Housing Shortage." So apparently there are some towns that aren't doing much to, or the local governments at least, they're not doing much to help increase that supply, to maybe ease the supply and demand problem, especially for the buyers. And I read about some recent story that happened in Marysville. Can you walk us through what happened there?
Right. So Columbus is growing. Columbus is, or now when I say Columbus, I mean Central Ohio. Columbus used to be like the small city, especially when my parents moved back here in the late 60s. It is now growing into a major metropolitan area. And so the Columbus City Council had the foresight to pull back some of the restrictions on building. They know that we need to start building higher density type housing with all the people that are coming in. They're projecting that Columbus, we need almost 20,000 housing units a year through 2050. Now that's 20,000 is quite a bit. So Columbus is trying to make things easier and make things more developer friendly. Well, the exterior counties and some of the cities that are close by don't want to see the growth. And I think what's really not being talked about, and one of the reasons is the school districts. Columbus has fantastic school districts, but if you look what the cost per student for a district, it is right now it's astronomically high, and I think it's a lot higher than a lot of people think. So what I did is I took I read this article, Devin and I read this article. So I did a quick breakdown on what the cost per student on some of these school districts. And an area like Olentangy schools where I live, it's about $14,000 a student. New Albany, it's $16,000. Bexley, it's $18,000. And when you start trying to build multifamily apartments or multifamily homes, if I'm a family of three and I move into a multifamily community, times those numbers I just gave you by three. And that's the cost to the school district or the cost to the community. So you can see why some of these communities and some of these smaller cities are trying to push back against this growth, whether it be from restrictions in development, whether it be, one way they like to work around it is like, let's say a tap fee or the restrictions on the number of units you can have per acre, whatever that might be, that's how they're pushing it back against the development.
I see. And I think I heard about a recent story over in Johnstown a couple months ago where they were also, and hearing from other people in Johnstown, the same thing, that they're also not, or the local government there is not really that interested in increasing housing supplies.
No,
The situation is similar in Johnstown?
yeah, Johnstown is definitely not interested with what's going on with Intel over in Johnstown. Johnstown is by far the fastest growing area in Central Ohio, and Johnstown right now is really a rural community. So what they've been doing, and what you're referring to is Epcon. Epcon's a condominium builder regionally, and they're based here in Columbus, Ohio, but they had planned on building a community out there, and Johnstown really pushed back with restrictions, and now, of course, it's going to court. It's never a good idea when the lawyers get involved, but that's what a lot of these developers are having to do now, or they're having to push back legally against some of these community boards because, again, the need for higher density housing is just there, and these communities are making it very difficult on the developers.
I see. Yeah, it does sound like balancing. One of the primary problems right now is balancing housing supply with the town's ability to, afford to educate any of the additional children coming in, right?
It's hard. I mean, it's very hard because the community, especially, and again, I'll reference Johnstown. Johnstown didn't ask for this growth. They don't want this growth. The residents that live there, again, I know some that live out there, don't want the growth. But again, the growth is coming. So, where's the balance? Well, we're going to find out.
Yep. So, yeah, regardless, the supply thing is an issue. So, as a real estate investor and someone that communicates and works with a lot of real estate investors and other real estate development-related professionals, how do you see some of these decisions from local townships affecting, like, a home builder's incentive to build more homes?
Well, the growth is going to happen. It has to happen. It's a fight that a lot of these communities aren't going to win. Now, they can work around restrictions and to a certain degree, but again, the growth is going to happen.
So whether we build these homes or not, we're going to be seeing more people coming.
Yeah. The people are coming for sure. There's no stopping them at this point.
All right, so that covers the three articles that we wanted to cover today on housing supply. So with that said, let's transition to a seller tip of the week. What do we have for sellers this week?
Seller tip of the week is if you're thinking about listing your property, do a little bit of research and price it accurately. So my suggestion to any of my clients is that you really want to price your home where the market is. In the past, a lot of sellers were like, well, I'm going to price a little bit high and that way I can negotiate price. And that's really the incorrect way of thinking about it. If you price your home where you think the market is or where your agent thinks the market is, that's going to spur a lot more interest and sell your home quickly. And you'll actually get probably a higher price if you try to price it high and then try to work your way backwards.
Yeah, because I mean, from a buyer point of view, from my point of view, I think when people see multiple home drops, they're like, what's wrong with the house?
Exactly. And the longer the home is on the market, the less you're going to receive for it.
All right, so that's our seller tip of the week. What about for buyers this week?
For buyers, do not waive your home inspection. I know the market is still pretty hot out there, especially with homes that, again, are move-in ready in popular areas or popular school districts, but it's really not worth waiving your due diligence just to get a house. There's just way too much that can go sideways on you, no matter how nice the house looks. No one's going up the attic, no one's looking at the foundation walls. So tip of the day for buyers, never waive your home inspection.
All right, so that wraps up our walkthrough of the housing supply here in Columbus this year. Some of the main things to look out for. With that said, do you have any closing thoughts, maybe things to consider or watch out for considering the housing supply?
Well, we're just at the very beginning of 2025. It's mid-February. So our spring market isn't going to kick off for about another 30 days. Just keep an eye on that supply of inventory. Keep an eye if you're buying. Watch rates. We don't think we're going to see any reduction in rates until at least July or August, according to the Fed. And then if you're selling, again, really price your home where you think the market is.
Yep. So kind of like make a reasonable set a reasonable price for your home to make sure you can make it attainable for other buyers.
That's how you get the best value for sure.
Okay, great. All right, so that is our video today. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Take care.